Random House Audio presents The Immortal Game, A History of Chess, or How 32 Carved Pieces on a Board Illuminated Our Understanding of War, Art, Science, and the Human Brain, by David Shenk. Read for you by Rick Adamson. Think of a virus so advanced it infects not the blood, but the thoughts of its human host. Liver and spleen are spared. Instead, this bug infiltrates the frontal lobes of the brain, dominating such prime cognitive functions as problem-solving, abstract reasoning, fine motor skills, and most notably, agenda setting. It directs thoughts, actions, and even dreams. This virus comes to dominate not the body, but the mind. When 11-year-old Marcel Duchamp first played chess with his older brothers Gaston and Raymond in their home in the French village of Blainville-Crevant in 1898, the game seemed like a harmless distraction, an interesting way of passing the quiet nights in the Normandy countryside. A quick thinker brimming with charm and confidence, Marcel excelled at most things and was well liked wherever he went. Nurtured by his family's deep artistic roots and following in the path set by his older brothers, he emerged in his late teens as an ambitious cartoonist and painter in Paris. In just a few years, Duchamp's intense and unusual work began to catch the public eye, mainly for its refusal to settle into a neat classification. He experimented with and quickly passed through the well-established painting styles of post-impressionism, fauvism, and cubism. By his mid-20s, in fact, he was moving past painting altogether into an intellectual aesthetic realm that would come to be known as conceptual art. With his landmark works Nude Descending a Staircase, The Large Glass, Fountain, a ready-made urinal, and LHOOQ, a postcard reproduction of the Mona Lisa doctored with a mustache and goatee, Duchamp gave a jump start to the sedate art world and helped inspire the Dada, Surrealist, and Abstractionist movements. Further, his art and ideas anticipated the emergence of pop art, minimal art, performance art, process art, and, says biographer Calvin Tompkins, virtually every postmodern tendency. By age 30, Duchamp had produced a body of work that would make him perhaps the most influential artist of the 20th century. And then chess took over. Chess holds its master in its own bonds, Albert Einstein once said, shackling the mind and brain so that the inner freedom of the very strongest must suffer. For more than a decade, the checker square board game with 4-inch medieval war figurines had been merely a happy diversion in Duchamp's life. In his teens and early 20s, he had played vigorously with family and friends. He also worked it into a few early paintings. But in his late 20s, something happened between Duchamp and chess that transformed the relationship into an addiction and eventually an obsession. Slowly, over a few years' time, chess moved to the very front of his brain, somehow forcing fundamentals like art, ideas, friendships, and romance to the rear. It was as if these 32 inanimate pieces of wood emitted some sort of unseen magnetic or hypnotic power, bending Duchamp's formidable mind to its own will. Strangest of all, perhaps, was the fact that this transition happened in the midst of career glory. Imagine John F. Kennedy chucking politics in June 1960 in favor of billiards. Popular and intriguing, Duchamp was the toast of art patrons in Paris, New York, and beyond. Now, at his peak, he was turning away from all this. Days that would ordinarily have been filled receiving admiring gallery owners and customers, and late nights that would have included dinner parties and more studio work, instead became packed with one chess game after another, after another, after another. Between games, Duchamp engaged in the silent monastic study of chess problems, thousands of tricky endgame scenarios labored over by most serious players. By his early 30s, the transition was complete. Apart from the design of some chess sets, Duchamp was producing virtually no art. He shocked friends by bluntly declaring that he was giving up his old career to become a full-time chess player. "I play day and night," he declared in 1919 at age 32, "and nothing interests me more than to find the right move." For hours at a stretch, taking just enough time for meals in between, Duchamp played alone in his apartment, with friends and strangers at cafes, and even in the midst of loud art world parties. This new life involved not just a reordering of his work and social priorities, he explained to friends, but also his very consciousness. "Everything around me takes the shape of the knight or the queen," he said, "and the exterior world has no other interest for me other than its transformation to winning or losing positions." Even true love could not moderate his fixation. In 1927, Duchamp married Lydia Sarrazin Levasseur, a young heiress. On their honeymoon, he spent the entire week studying chess problems. Infuriated, his bride plotted her revenge. When Duchamp finally drifted off to sleep late one night, Lydia glued all of the pieces to the board. They were divorced 3 months later. Large rocks, severed heads, and flaming pots of oil rained down on Baghdad, capital of the vast Islamic Empire, as its weary defenders scrambled to reinforce gates, ditches, and the massive stone walls surrounding the fortress city's many brick and teak palaces. Giant wooden Majonic catapults bombarded distant structures, while the smaller, more precise Arata catapult guns pelted individuals with grapefruit-sized rocks. Arrows flew thickly, and elite horsemen assaulted footmen with swords and spears. "The horses trample the livers of courageous young men," lamented the poet Al-Karemi, "and their hooves split their skulls." Outside the circular city's main wall, 100 feet high, 145 feet thick, and 6 miles in circumference, soldiers pressed forward with battering rams, while other squads choked off supply lines of food and reinforcements. Amid sinking boats and burning rafts, bodies drifted down the Tigris River. The impenetrable city of peace was crumbling. In the 50 years since its creation in AD 762, young Baghdad had rivaled Constantinople and Rome in its prestige and influence. It was a wildly fertile axis of art, science, and religion, and a bustling commercial hub for trade routes reaching deep into Central Asia, Africa, and Europe. But by the late summer of AD 813, after nearly 2 years of civil war, between brothers no less, the enlightened Islamic capital was a smoldering, starving, bloody heap. In the face of disorder, any human being desperately needs order, some way to manage, if not the material world, at least one's understanding of the world. In that light, perhaps it's no real surprise that, as the stones and arrows and horses' hooves thundered down on Baghdad, the protected core of the city hosted a different sort of battle. Within the round city's imperial inner sanctum, secure behind 3 thick circular walls and many layers of gate and guard, under the luminescent green dome of the Golden Gate Palace, Muhammad al-Amin, the 6th caliph of the Abbasid Empire, spiritual descendant of, and distant blood relation to, the Prophet Muhammad, sovereign of one of the largest dominions in the history of the world, was playing chess against his favorite eunuch, Kawthar. A trusted messenger burst into the royal apartment with urgently bad news. More inglorious defeats in and around the city were to be reported to the caliph. In fact, his own safety was now in jeopardy. But Al-Amin would not hear of it. He waved off his panicked emissary. "O commander of the faithful," implored the messenger, according to the medieval Islamic historian Girgis al-Makan, "this is not the time to play. Pray, arise and attend to matters of more serious moment." It was no use. The caliph was absorbed in the board. A chess game in progress is, as every chess spouse quickly learns, a cosmos unto itself, fully insulated from an infant's cry, an erotic invitation, or war. The board may have only 32 pieces and 64 squares, but within that confined space, the game has near infinite depth and possibility. An outsider looking on casually.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?